Hello everyone, it's your bud. Today we're going to be talking about Overhaul from My Hero Academia. I don't know too much about Overhaul as I usually just watch the My Hero fight scenes. I don't watch the whole show, but I have seen his fight scene before and I did know a few things about him. So we're going to go through the wiki first and read what they have, and then I will tell you my own thoughts. Now also, before we get started, there's one word you might need to learn what it means: mesophobic, which means someone who has a fear of germs or sickness. So let's talk about Overhaul. Overhaul is a mesophobic, antisocial sociopath obsessed with returning the world to the way it was before the quirk phenomenon. Due to a combination of an old theory claiming quirks derived from rats and mixed with the fear of his own mesophobia, Overhaul believes that quirks are actually a plague upon humanity, having infected people with syndromes of either heroism or of villainy. He looks down upon those that use their abilities for either purpose, referring to acts of heroic sacrifice or petty crime as sicknesses. Overhaul is extremely determined to his ambition of eradicating quirks, not only due to his own personal phobias, that being of germs, but also because such a thing would allow the Yakuza to reclaim the power they once held over society. Overhaul has no moral compass and an enormous ego, viewing himself as the only person in the world that's enlightened to the true nature of quirks and deserving of the spot of ruler of the underworld after the fall of All for one of the other main villains. In spite of this, Overhaul's values are noted to be paradoxical, particularly his over-reliance on a quirk that he happened to name himself after. As the leader of the, I'm gonna mess this up, like I said, I haven't watched the show, so I haven't heard all the pronunciations of the bad guys' villain associations. I just watched for the fight scenes. As the leader of the, I'm not going to say it again, but as the leader of his particular group of Yakuza, Overhaul is usually level-headed, thinks strategically, and according to a conversation with Twice, seems to be nice at first. Whether he is acting or behaving genuinely, Overhaul does possess some polite mannerisms and can come off as very calm and classy, even to people he considers potentially troublesome. This being evident in his first meeting with Mino Tagada and Izuku Midoriya. If aggravated, however, he may end up displaying a powerful and visible killing intent, more fitting of his true character. Overhaul is very germophobic and hates anything he perceives as unsanitary, frequently remarking about the unclean appearances of certain people and locations. He refuses to be touched by others or even breathe in the same air as theirs, which is one of the reasons he wears an air-filtering plague doctor mask and forces his subordinates to do the same while around him. If blood, dirt, or some other unclean substance comes into contact with Overhaul's person, he will start developing hives and lose his usual composure, becoming increasingly unhinged as a result. In drastic circumstances, though, Overhaul will let go of his aversions in order to crush an enemy that's standing in his way, either due to pragmatism or out of sheer hatred. Overhaul does not value humans, viewing people as pawns for their utilitarian value and being willing to experiment on them to accomplish his objectives. He carries this sentiment even towards the other members of the organization he is dedicating himself to since his childhood, treating them as expendable sacrifices for his well-being and having no qualms in killing them off for the smallest mistakes. The masks worn by his closest subordinates also serve as a reminder of this mindset. He doesn't view them as worthy of sharing the same air as him. Even Eri, the centerpiece of his operations, is not spared from this brutal way of thinking as he frequently shames and abuses her through threats and guilt trips, seemingly as a method to force subservience on her mind. The only person Kai has ever shown concern to is the former boss of the Shihisaki who rescued him from the streets as a youngster and raised him as a Yakuza. Kai, the real name of Overhaul, still feels deeply indebted to his boss for taking him in, being adamant in returning said debt by returning the Yakuza to their glory days somehow. As a young Yakuza, Kai was extremely ruthless and would kill anyone who didn't show the Shigasaki the proper respect, constantly getting into fights with rival gangs and Kai's boss, who was growing aware of the violent, immoral path his underling was following to uphold the name of the Shigasaki, attempted to sway him towards a more honorable course, but to no avail. Kai became more and more convinced that illegal, questionable dealings were the only way the Yakuza could ever restore their former honor. This would lead the misanthropic Kai to develop the interest in the boss's granddaughter because he considered her rewinding abilities a golden opportunity for the Shigasaki, believing he could produce a quirk-destroying drug out of her cells that would give the Yakuza enough power to take control of the black market. Kai, despite his loyalty and indebtedness to his superior, could not accept his boss's disagreement over the idea, attacking and leaving him in a comatose state to work on his plan unimpeded. Kai took over the Shigasaki under the twisted assumption that everything he was doing was for the sake of his boss and the organization. In the end, Overhaul's failure to recognize others and his own obstinate nature resulted in his downfall. Despite his strong-willed attitude, he's capable of expressing true fear and shock, especially post-defeat. After the League of Villains took away his product and ability to use his quirk, and now he's locked up in the jail of Tartarus, which I believe other people have been. Stain was sent to Tartarus, Muscular and Moonfish were sent to the prison. Moonfish is awaiting the death penalty. All For One was sent to Tartarus, and Overhaul was sent to Tartarus, so we don't know, but there's a lot of really, really terrible people in Tartarus right now. Also, when discussing his appearance, which he has the mask and the coat and all of this, I also learned that he lost both of his arms due to Mr. Compress and Tomura Shigaraki. I don't know either of those people, or maybe I just know their images, but anyways, he's lost both his arms. So prior to his dismemberment, Overhaul was an incredibly powerful villain that gathered the attention of All For One, the most powerful villain in Japan. He's a very dangerous individual due to his quirk, Overhaul, the handling he has on it, and his own lack of remorse while in battle. Overhaul focuses on quickly disassembling his targets to kill them, or reshaping the terrain around him into a barrage of spikes to attack his opponent. He reshapes the ground to maneuver himself around the area as well as counter incoming attacks. The ability to instantly rearrange his vicinity grants Overhaul multiple methods of dealing with his opponents, making him a massive threat from all ranges. In the past, when he recruited Kendo Rappa, a heavily experienced brawler, into the Shigasaki, Kendo proposed that in order to gain his servitude, Overhaul has to defeat him in battle. But just as Kendo prepared an attack, the Yakuza leader effortlessly disassembled, then reassembled Kendo. Even after Kendo became a member of the 8 Bullets, Overhaul was challenged by him 5 times, and swiftly overhauled and defeated the brawler with each attempt. When he first encountered the League of Villains, Overhaul was able to instantly destroy, and again I don't know the pronunciation of this name, Magne, M-A-G-N-E. I'm not exactly sure which villain that was, as well as the left arm of Mr. Compress, both of whom had the mettle to attack the Yakuza leader. During the Shigasaki raid, Overhaul and his subordinates were encountered by Miro Tagada, a UA student worthy of the #1 hero spot, who quickly dealt with 2 Hasai members before facing off against Hari and Overhaul in another 2-on-1 fight. At the beginning of the fight, Hari was incapacitated, while Overhaul temporarily held his own against Miro. Oops, it's Mirio, isn't it? Mirio, I'll be getting that wrong the whole time. But was overwhelmed by his top-tier prowess, which Overhaul himself noted was above his own abilities. Overpowered, Overhaul gave the defeated Shin quirk-destroying bullets to depower the intangible hero, which was a success. However, Overhaul still found himself on the defensive from Mirio's fighting spirit and brute strength, until he was finally capable of using reassemble spikes to immobilize and injure Mirio to a sufficient extent. Before Overhaul could finish off the depowered Mirio, Izuku Midoriya and Sir Night-Eye arrived on the scene, with the one-for-all inheritors surprising the Yakuza leader with a full cowling smash. With the arrival of Izuku and Night-Eye, Overhaul realized his plans were at risk of failing, so he went as far as to merge with Shin, and after doing so, Overhaul himself became more monstrous in terms of appearance. This transformation granted Overhaul increased power, heightened speed, access to Shin's confession quirk, and an additional set of arms through which the amalgamated Yakuza leader can activate his original quirk, showcasing a higher magnitude of control of the said power. Overhaul's merged power allows him to eventually overpower Sir Night-Eye, critically injuring the former sidekick of All Might. As a result, and effortlessly contending with Izuku, who raised his all-for-one output to 20%. Overhaul was challenged by Kendo 5 times, and in each of those times, Kendo lost despite his prowess. This implies that Overhaul possesses his own degree of high speed and reaction time in order to accomplish this feat, as his quirk requires him to touch his opponent for it to take effect. His fast reaction time is also shown when he's able to evade Mirio's punch. However, although he was left with a scratch on his face, Overhaul also has great durability, as he was assaulted by several of Mirio's punches and was able to take them as well as remain fully conscious despite still receiving bad injuries. Whereas a simple attack from Mirio was enough to knock out and badly injure Didoro and Shin, 2 of the 8 bullets, to the point where they could no longer fight. Later on, he was able to survive punches from Izuku, who was wielding all-for-one at 100%. Overhaul also showed little reaction to having both of his arms destroyed by the League of Villains, albeit he despaired over losing his 2 limbs. Overhaul is an extremely intelligent person, with inventive, strategic, and tactical wits. The most noteworthy aspect of his intelligence is the quirk-destroying drug he created from the DNA of Eri, whose quirk, Rewind, can rewind a target into a previous state. Following the Yakuza tradition of covering the trails of their crimes, Overhaul cleaned up his illegal actions by disassembling his targets first, taking what he needed from them, and then restoring their bodies to a perfect condition in the end, thus avoiding incriminating evidence of violent assault from being left behind. During his brash encounter with the League of Villains, Overhaul knew that at least one of the members would attack him with a quirk, so he preemptively had a sniper equipped with experimental quirk-destroying bullets set as a precautionary measure, a measure that was proven very necessary as Mr. Compress lunged at the Yakuza, only to have his compress quirk temporarily erased. Being the leader of the Hasai group, he's a very organized person that can factor in the abilities of multiple people in order to initiate coordinated and well-planned attacks. An example of this was when he suggested that Twice and Himiko Toga reveal their quirk capabilities so they can prep the impending arrival of heroes. Overhaul had carefully set various members of the Hasai group on different levels of the Shihisaki compound in an attempt to slow down the heroes so that Overhaul could make his escape with Eri. Kai's quirk, named Overhaul, grants him the ability to disassemble anything he touches as well as reassemble it in any configuration he desires, effectively giving him full control over matter. He can disassemble people to kill them or reassemble them to heal their wounds. He can also do this to himself and even merge his body with others, even allowing him to use their quirks, such as Shin's confession and Rikia's vitality stealing. He can also apparently regenerate his limbs without having to make contact with himself, and can reform and reshape their bodies any way which he wants. In battle, Kai can frequently manipulate his surroundings. He can modify the ground to maneuver himself and reshape the area into a state that is advantageous to him and harmful to his opponents. By touching his targets, he can completely blow their body apart, whether it be a limb or the entirety of it. After Mr. Compress and Tamura destroyed his arms, which are also his quirk factor, Kai is currently unable to use his quirk. Kai wears a plague mask. He's always worn a mask since being under the Hisaki. Kai normally wore a simple black mask after becoming a villain though. Kai took to wearing his signature Plague Doctor mask that represents his efforts to cleanse the world of the hero disease, which would also cleanse the world of the villain disease associated with it. Kai always wears a pair of white plastic gloves. This helps prevent him from getting his hands dirty, and normally he removes the gloves before using his quirk. He wears them to ultimately avoid breaking out into hives. So Overhaul is quite the villain, able to disassemble and reassemble anything in any way he chooses, removing evidence of crimes and able to heal or repair whatever has been destroyed. Also, the merging with others is just too good. Like Gurren Lagann or like Dragon Ball Z fusions, there just had to be someone with fusion power in My Hero. And I'm glad this was the way it happened. If Overhaul just had a fusion power, then that would be so lame. But the fact that he can fuse any part of any person or thing to himself or others using his quirk Overhaul is just so cool. I feel like Kai is basically a kid that can turn everything into Legos and then mix them all together into one big monster like we did with Bionicles. You know, just having fun. The amount of ways his quirk could be used and the amount of silly things that could be done are incredible. And if he wasn't a villain, he could have been such a strong hero. But what are heroes and villains? Are they choices? Are they personalities? Or are they the strains of a disease of superpowers? The villain strain and the hero strain. And no, that's not the villain stain, but the villain strain of the quirk virus. Both heroism and villainism would not exist without the quirks. The whole culture of heroism and villainism would not have existed without the quirks. Yet Kai is a Yakuza, and wants there to be no heroes or villains, so he then has no competition of villainy in his Yakuza life, and no heroes to stop him either. It seems odd that he views the world through the view of sickness and germs, and yet desires the Yakuza to have such power that he would attack the boss and man he's indebted to just to steal the man's granddaughter and experiment on her and torture her. It seems like whatever motive he had changed when he started to follow his own goals over paying back the respect and help he received from his boss. Turning on his boss and his fellow Yakuza and abandoning them to create his own group of the 8 Bullets. Or is it that he didn't want to expend the Yakuza and created the 8 Bullets to be the scapegoats? I don't know if he did that to save his Yakuza, or if because he just didn't even care about the Yakuza, so he created his own group for his own goals. I don't know, since I've only watched the fight scenes of My Hero. Was he nice to his Yakuza underlings, or was he treating them the same as the 8 Bullets? Because so, his motives got all messed up. If he expended the Yakuza to make his own goals happen, whilst exploiting the granddaughter of his boss for the rewinding quirks she had. If his wish came true, it would mean such a change to the world of My Hero, and the threat still remains, for he has shown others the path he wished the world to go down, and left it up to others to make it happen. Now locked in Tartarus, will he influence the others there, or will he leave the prison with a new outlook and goal, intent on no longer erasing his quirks, but with a new cause, which of course I believe will happen. I don't know if he'll have a change in personality, but I think he definitely will escape. I really like Overhaul's power, and I think it's so cool, like the Reality Stone from Marvel, or the mutation and merging of species in the book and movie Annihilation. Overhaul's power works on organic matter, as well as inorganic matter, able to transform landscapes, people, plants, animals, structures, and probably holds control over the elements should he wish to break things down to that level. Could he overhaul the oxygen out of the air, or the ozone layer to let in dangerous radiation from the sun, overhauling currents in the sea to wreak havoc? And I wonder how large of a thing could he overhaul? How large an island could he overhaul at once? 1 kilometer? 2 kilometers? The whole of Japan? Could he overhaul the whole world, creating a Mount Everest out of nothing, and playing like the Earth is his sandbox? Can overhaul gravity, or forces of nature or natural phenomenons? Like the Aurora Borealis or whatever? It says he has to touch it, Can you touch gravity? Can he overhaul the light in the air to make himself invisible, folding the light and bending it away from the views of others? Or could he overhaul the weather, making it snow or rain? If he can overhaul the protons and electrons and excite them, then he can change whatever state a matter is in. I think we have seen this demonstrated before when he moves stone like liquid. But has he ever controlled the weather with it? He could overhaul positive and negative points in the atmosphere to make lightning strikes, taking out cameras or surveillance, and he could also overhaul a digital signal. If he learned to code, he could just overhaul the ones and zeros to change the info on a computer, or be the most pro hacker ever, able to literally overhaul his computer that he uses to hack even more. He could overhaul and fuse himself with a computer, being a biocomputer thing. He could merge himself with a computer, or merge himself with a storm or the wind. The powers of overhaul are pretty much endless. Overhauling matter, whether organic or inorganic. Overhauling energy, whether natural or man-made. Overhauling signals, digital or analog, like radio waves. He could basically Lucy the world. You know the scene in Lucy where her brain evolves enough to see all the cell phone signals and radio waves, and she can just search through them like she's flipping through the pages of a book? We're always being touched by radio cells or wireless signals. There are so many of them now, and they could all be controlled by Overhaul. He should have had a hacker team that was tapped into these incredible powers, able to fully manipulate elements, signals, matter, fusions with people, and possessing a smart brain dedicated to one singular goal. Overhaul is quite the villain, and now that he's locked up in Tartarus with many other terrible people, I think it's only time before he is seen again. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. I really like Overhaul. He has an awesome quirk and is so overpowered. The only thing that keeps him from being the absolute best is his ego, which prevents him from relying upon or forming close bonds with others, also due to his fear of germs and his feeling of an air of superiority, not taking the time to grow close and fully utilize their skills, as both having a fear of growing close and catching their germs or sickness, and of believing himself superior over them. Failing to fully utilize their skills, he treats his underlings like pawns rather than the partners they are. Had he learned to rely upon his underlings and share in his goal and dreams with them, he would have reached even greater heights. Yet, I think his fear of germs and sickness pollute and corrupted his mind, as he could not overcome that. Had he would have realized that the entire world is just one organism, one living being, one thing, all connected, that he could have overhauled however he wished. Leave this video a like if you want me to talk more about My Hero Academia or any other anime. Just yesterday, the day before, I got a comment asking me if I knew about My Hero, and it made me chuckle. I cannot watch every anime out there, but I have watched all the fight scenes and cool character moments, and as when it comes to anime, I have watched so much. So I already saw the battle between Midoriya and Overhaul, and I've watched tons of anime over years and years. So unless it's a brand new show, I probably have seen a clip and would be happy to talk about whatever anime character, power, or world you want to know more about. So do not hesitate. Even if it's an obscure anime I've never heard of, I'd be happy to learn about a new show to make whatever video any of you want. I've most likely seen it unless it's a new release. I've watched way too much anime, so much. So subscribe for daily videos. I make a new video every single day, and it seems like the next while will be My Hero videos. There will most likely be probably 3 or 4 more of these before I switch to another topic. And when I say switch, I just mean talking about something new. I'm always fine coming back to this topic, so if you're watching this in the future, just feel free to leave a suggestion below. I might have missed something about Overhaul, and I can make a part 2 if there's more to say, or if there's more to say in a few more years. So just leave any questions or suggestions in the comments below, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Thanks for watching.